Welcome into Edge of Philly Sports Pregame Live. I'm Freddie Burns with Chris Dimes, and we got Thursday night Eagles football tonight. Home opener for your 1-0 Eagles versus the 0-1 Minnesota Vikings. Dimes, how you feeling?
Doing well, man. How you doing?
Good, man. It's been a minute to do one with you, so I'm pretty pumped up. But you're all over the place. That's on me. I'm the one. But very excited for tonight. Thursday. Actually, I don't really like the Thursday night game. If I'm going to be honest, I hate the Thursday night game. 4-game turnaround for the Birds. No Sunday football for myself, but I'm going to get myself up for this. Game starts in about an hour 45 minutes. Before we get into our pregame predictions, we're going to get into some matchups, some did you know, our top our keys to the game. And but before I do any of that, I just want to thank our amazing sponsors, David R. Cherry Law, Philly Sports Trips, Sherry's Tickets, and Dolan's Bar. We'll get in each one of you individually. Thank you so much for your sponsorship. We really appreciate it. So, what's up, Daniel Berry Sports Highlights? You're always coming in with the yo in the beginning. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening and then commenting. We really appreciate it. Please share us out. I'm sure you're already liked in that subscribe button because you're always on it every time. So thanks for joining in. Quickly, a little Eagles-Vikings history. This I don't want to call it rivalry. This matchup goes back to October 28th, 1962. And the series is tied 15-15 overall. No ties. Always good when there's no ties. And the Eagles have outscored the Vikings 715-662. And of the last 5, Vikings have won 3 of the the Eagles have won 3 of the last 5. So, Dives, quickly, any Vikings-Eagles moment that comes to mind for you that you remember?
Oh, it's got to be the Eastern or the NFC Championship game. Come on. I mean, that was the ultimate. I remember exactly where I was for that game. It was like a dream, right? Like the everything that preceded there with Nick Foles throwing bombs and just blowing out the Vikings and the fans and the reaction and the Vikings fans complaining. Like, it was just magical. That's got to be it.
Oh, my gosh, Dives. I was trying to think of the moment, and I did not even think of that game once. As soon as you're saying it's got to be, and then you said that, and I'm like, oh my God, of course it has to be that. I was at that game. It was amazing. Too much alcohol, though, for myself that game. I'll say that.
I was tailgating at that game, and it was super cold, man. It was nuts.
So cold. But I'll say my other one is a Monday night game. Terrell Owens, Randy Moss, Culpepper, who at that time was top of the league. I think it was the year after the Madden cover. So he was on top versus McNabb. Huge Monday night matchup. And I remember going into the gates, and the Vikings fan had his whole Viking outfit on. He had a sword. And we all started chanting to the guard, "Take the sword. It's a weapon. Take the sword." There, the guard took the sword and we're like, yeah. So, I'm sure the Vikings fans hate us though for that in Philadelphia, their experience here. But let's get to tonight. Eagles coming off a 1-0 game. A win is a win. Wasn't the prettiest. They got the win. The Vikings actually lose to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers off the back of some basically Kirk Cousins turnovers. Outside of those, they probably would end up winning that game. Let's get into the offense versus the defense. First, I'll start. What Eagles offensive matchups, or you'll start, do you see as important tonight?
I mean, you kind of nailed it. You know, it's a sloppy, debut versus another sloppy debut. You look at the Minnesota Vikings, a lot of unforced errors. I think they had like 6 penalties, 3 turnovers. And then you look at the Eagles. They never were in rhythm on offense. The offensive line wasn't playing well. We'll get into more of that later. But for me, like the matchups on offense is mostly just the Jalen Hurts variable versus himself. It is the offensive line versus themselves. Like, they have to clean it up. Jalen Hurts left the pocket way too early. It wasn't a good game. You look at the offensive line; they gave up way too much pressure. Collectively, with Brian Johnson and the play calling, it was a dud, and they escaped week one with a W. I need to see this offense as efficient as it was in 2022. And you expect them to kind of start out the gate slow. You know, they didn't play at all during the preseason, talking about the starters. So for me, it's Jalen Hurts and the offensive line cementing their will against an inferior opponent.
Two very, very good ones, and were very impactful in the slowness of last Sunday. For me, my two main matchups, I'm going to go to A.J. Brown. Devontae Smith was the more loud one last week, ton of targets. But will his matchup, Byron Murphy Jr. of the Vikings, probably their top cornerback, will they match him up against A.J. Brown? That's very likely. And I'd like to see how A.J. Brown, if we can get him going, get him back to the status. I mean, it's only been one game, so I hate to say get back to the status, but get him involved in the offense, get a good flow with A.J. Brown to open everything up. And then my second, actually, I'm torn on two matchups here, but I'm since one of the keys to the games, the other one, I'm going to go running back, and I'm going to go DeAndre Swift. And I don't know if the matchup is against the Vikings or it's against Nick Sirianni. But that he did not get one touch last week. He got one touch, not any whatever. I'm stumbling over my words. He got one touch last week. I know Kenny Gainwell was getting most of the carries, but Gainwell is out with an injury tonight. But they really need to utilize DeAndre Swift. Like, we traded for him for a reason, not for him to get one touch and barely play the game. So I think a huge is to see him, if they'll use him between the tackles, they'll probably split that with Rashad Penny, but also get this guy to do what he does best, catch the ball out of the backfield, take some pressure off Jalen Hurts if he's not seeing the field like he did last year, 2022. So there's that.
Kenny Gainwell being out could be a blessing in disguise, man.
I felt bad because he's hurt, and you don't want to say that, but I texted multiple people that today. I was like, I think it kind of actually helps us because you're forced to use that. Next, we'll get into the Eagles defense, but before we do that, we got a very good sponsor that we'd like to thank. Dimes, where's yours at? I thought I could click the button and you would.
Oh, it's probably not under this stream. You have to go to a different stream. I don't know if I uploaded them.
I'll just jump in and do it, ad-lib it. But so first we'll start. And if you're not down there now, you got to get down to Philly Sports Trips. They have a tailgate going right now, but their next trip they got going is in Tampa Bay, Monday Night Football. About a week and a half from now, Hollis Thomas will be there, Vince Papale, David Akers, 97.5 The Fanatic. Tampa is amazing to begin with. It's just an awesome area. Philly Sports Trips does it great, and they have a ton of more trips coming up. Kansas City, New England, Dallas, Los Angeles, Seattle, Tampa. As I spoke, go to phillysportstrips.com, book a trip today, and if you're down at the tailgate, they're right by Philly Live. Walk by and just say Edge of Philly Sports sent you. Ask for Al, and I'm sure Vince will take care of you and get you a spot in their tailgate. Top of the line alcohol, food. It's just a great time. So let's jump into our matchups. Eagles defense. Again, they weren't beautiful. We have a ton of injuries. Reed Blankenship out. James Bradbury out. And even when they all were in, they didn't look too pretty last week. What's your matchups tonight for against the Vikings?
Yeah, I've got two. Leading off with the Eagles pass rush versus the Vikings O-line. The Vikings O-line was not great last year. They allowed the most quarterback hits on the season in 2022 with 88. They allowed pressure on 23.3% of the dropbacks. He looked against the Cardinals, and Kirk Cousins was under pressure all game long. The Bucs had 9 quarterback hits, 6 tackles for loss. Garrett Bradbury, Christian Darrisaw are out. I would be legit concerned if the Eagles pass rush can't get home this week, because I thought overall the Eagles defensive line was probably the standout of week 1. I thought they were terrific getting pressure. I'll talk more about another certain player more specifically in a little bit. But for me, it's got to be the Eagles pass rush getting home. I want to see them take out Kirk Cousins, at least get 6 sacks, tonight and show why they are the best pass rush in the NFL.
They have to, Dobbs. Last week, only 2 sacks, a 35.7% quarterback pressure rate, which isn't bad, and 7 QB hits. But you could see Belichick, well, not really Belichick, Bill O'Brien developed a game plan, get the ball out fast, and you can beat this defense.
And also, I want to see Sean Desai. I want to see what this guy's all about. Like, we talked all week about how vanilla the offense was. How about the defense? You know, their blitz percentage was 20%. Their average last season was 22%. Sean Desai spent all offseason talking about how he's going to attack. We didn't see it. I want to see what it looks like. Let's start in week 2.
Another defensive coordinator said that last year too about attacking, and he never seemed to do it either. And when they did blitz, they blitzed on the outside, the edge, instead of going to the interior with the 2 injuries. It was mind-boggling. Do you got any more matchups for this week before I go?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Eagles linebackers versus TJ Hawkinson. That is a big one.
Huge.
Nakobe Dean is out this week. He's out for the next few weeks. I thought he was very good against the run. And I thought Zach Cunningham had a really bad game. The Patriots targeted him a ton. Zach Cunningham looked lost many different times. Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki had 8 catches and 92 yards combined, and a touchdown on 9 targets last week. They got open at will in the middle of the field. So you look at Zach Cunningham, like, I need to see a bounce back game in a big, big way. If I am the Vikings, I don't understand. Like, I would go on that matchup all game long on offense, and I don't just like the Patriots did, just like Belichick did in week 1. That is a huge matchup to watch.
You nailed it, man. It's a problem. And last year when we faced the Vikings, there was no TJ Hawkinson. Zach Cunningham was on rollers. I don't know what he was doing. He was just all over the place.
Yeah.
That's a huge, huge problem tonight that hopefully they rectify. And with Reed Blankenship out, it's not like we have a safety over the top that's familiar with. I mean, if it's Sidney Brown, he's a rookie. Like, that's a problem.
Yeah, and if you have Reed Blankenship, who I thought was excellent in week 1, you have Justin Evans, who, just like Cunningham, looked terrible. So I guess silver lining, we're going to get a lot of Justin Evans this week. There's no question about it. Maybe, just maybe, he looks so bad that we could finally see Sidney Brown sooner than later. Because the Eagles I think the Eagles will commit to Justin Evans, but it'll be interesting to see what Sidney Brown's snap count will look like. I mean, he is what he is. He's going to probably miss some tackles, but I would rather develop Sidney Brown now and get him ready than later.
Agreed. And they'll probably sprinkle in some Terrell Edmonds as well. Yeah. My matchup, I have 2. One piggybacks kind of off what you just said, but I'll start with the other. Jordan Addison versus Josh Jobe. Josh Jobe, undrafted free agent, totally worked on his game, changed everything to the point in training camp, earned the job of, first backup outside corner. And here we are with the Bradbury injury. He's got a matchup tonight against Addison that I'm very intrigued to see. Addison had 4 catches, 61 yards, and a touchdown. Great college player, touchdown machine in college. It's going to be interesting to see. Jobe we'll really see what he is, because is he just an undrafted free agent that we can spot put in, or is he a guy you can start at corner on the outside and have success?
That's a really good one. Did you know that Jordan Addison played 100% of the snaps in week 1? 100%.
Did not know that.
Yeah, so he's going to be on the field a lot.
It's going to be huge, and I'll be curious to say. I'm not going to dive into it too much, but Slay versus Jefferson's another one, because everyone forgets Jefferson played hurt last year when Slay shut him down. He's 100% healthy now, coming off with a 9-catch, 150-yard game. That'll be interesting too. But my other key is kind of piggybacking off the pass rush, but it's specifically Jalen Carter versus the interior offensive line of the Minnesota Vikings. You have Ezra Cleveland, who is a pretty good guard. If you look at PFF, he's considered an elite pass protector. But then the center, Austin Schlottman, and the other guard, Ed Ingram, they're trash. So, but apparently last week we had 2 injured guards last week, and we didn't get to the quarterback either. So, not Jalen Carter's fault, but he had an awesome rookie. What do you have? 6 pressures, 1 sack. Only one other, I think it was Ndamukong Suh's the last one to have that great of a rookie game.
Yeah.
So, I'm interested to see Carter actually hit home and wreak havoc in a Jerome Brown type, because I don't know that Cousins is going to get the ball off quick enough. So that's my big matchup on defense.
I love it. Yeah, he might be talking about Jalen Carter in just a little bit.
All season we will. And to get tickets to go see him, I got the spot for you as well. Go to Sherry's Ticket Town. Phillies fans save big, great prices, no hidden fees. Sports, concerts, theaters, www.sherrystickets.com. Put on the promo code EOP10, 10% off. If you're in the parking lot, maybe you're thinking about going down to the game. You got time. If you're close, if you're within 15, 20 minutes, go to sherrystickets.com right now. Just look at the prices. Hey, maybe the prices drop down. You don't have to look at the fees of the other companies. Go to the game tonight or book another game as well. But that's sherrystickets.com. Before we get into our keys to the game and predictions, I got a really cool did you know? All right. Rest in peace, Bud Grant, the great Hall of Fame coach for the Minnesota Vikings. But did you know Hall of Fame Vikings coach Bud Grant began his career with the Philadelphia Eagles in 1951. He played his first season at defensive end and led the team in tackles. Then they moved him over to offense, where he led the team in receptions, 56 of them, and 7 touchdowns. He eventually did not like what he was getting paid and left for the CFL, but he could have been an all-time great Eagle if they were cheap back then even, if they would have just paid the man. He was also drafted by the Minneapolis at the time, Minneapolis Lakers as well. But Bud Grant, Minnesota Viking great. I didn't know that this week. I did now, so I thought I'd bring it up on the show. Did you know that?
No, of course not, man. That's well before my time.
I mean, I didn't know it, but I was looking through things. I'm like, oh, wow, that's a fun fact. And then I delved deeper and saw the stats. And I'm like, oh, wow, pretty cool. But let's jump into our keys of the game. We're going to bounce in and out. I'm going to kick this off first with, I'll show all 5. The turnovers, pass defense, third down, tight ends, and Jalen Hurts. We'll kick this off with turnovers. Last week, Kirk Cousins, 2 fumbles lost as well as an interception. And the Eagles had, how many turnovers? I know Jalen Hurts had the main turnover in the fourth quarter, which could have cost them the game. I believe that might have been it.
I think that's it.
That's it. So turnovers is a great equalizer to any football game. And the Vikings, if you look at the stats, outplayed the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But those 3 turnovers by Kirk Cousins cost them the game. Same thing with the Eagles. That game is out of reach. We probably win the game. If Hurts doesn't fumble that, we don't have to worry about a guy dragging his foot down the sidelines. We don't have to worry about any of that. Turnovers is a great equalizer. Dives, would you agree turnovers is a big key tonight?
Absolutely. The Eagles' greatness last season with their defense was how many defensive takeaways they had. It was just such a 180 compared to the previous season. And you look at this Vikings team that had turnovers right outside of their own red zone. They had another turnover outside of the 30-yard line. And then they had an interception on the 13-yard line. So that's huge. They were in scoring range, and that's 3 times they put the ball in the hands of the other team. So who wins the turnover battles? Massive tonight.
Quentin Moore checking in. Key D-line domination. Yeah, D-line domination is definitely a key, which brings us right into our next key, which is pass defense. And a huge part of the pass defense is the D-line. But overall, the Eagles' pass defense, can they improve from last week? Receivers were open all over the field. And as far as sacks goes, we only generate 2 sacks. We had a 35% quarterback pressure rate. But overall, I think pass defense is huge. The Vikings last week, their pass D, they gave up 173 yards, 5.1 yards per attempt, and they only gave up put on 1 sack and 35 dropbacks, 2 quarterback hits. So the Vikings pass rush and the Eagles stopping the pass rush is a huge factor as well. Dives, your thoughts on the pass rush on both sides?
Pass rush, yeah, I already touched on it. I think that is a massive advantage from the inside and outside for the Philadelphia Eagles. If, like I said, if the Eagles aren't dominating in the trenches tonight, we've got bigger worries because this is a great matchup for the Philadelphia Eagles. When it comes to pass defense, I like the Eagles' run defense more than I did the pass defense. I wasn't really happy with some of the coverage I saw in week 1. And you already nailed it with Josh Jobe, man. That's a guy that is expected to deliver tonight. And the good news is he got a lot of his reps on the outside throughout the preseason, throughout camp. So he should be ready to go. For the pass defense for the Minnesota Vikings, they kind of got torched last week. You look at Murphy, you look at Evans, Metellus, a guy that kind of has that slot position for the Minnesota Vikings. They gave up 666 and a touchdown to Mike Evans. Chris Godwin had 5 catches for 51 yards. There's a rookie named Trey Palmer also found the end zone. So, Murphy's a really good corner, but like outside of that, they don't really have much. So for me, I still like the Eagles' pass defense better than I do the Vikings. So there's a lot of advantages in favor of the Philadelphia Eagles. It's just, can they negate the two ones as much as possible, which is the linebacker depth and safety, which is a huge, huge concern.
Malik Coletta checking in. Thank you for listening. The Vikings O-line looked crappy last week. I definitely want to see some wreckage up front. They won't have time to pass if we're in Kirk's face. We need to key the middle of the field and stop the quick tight end pressure passes. If we can get that under control, we win tonight. Malik, I could not agree more. That's huge. And that was the huge, game plan the Patriots had against us. Mac Jones got the ball out in like 2 seconds every play, which negated a ton of the pressures.
How about on the other end? The Eagles completely neglected the middle of the field and Dallas Goedert. We saw 0 passes. In fact, they only had 1 pass of 15 yards or more in week 1. Like, that's unacceptable. So that's a great comment.
They also gave up 3 sacks and had a 38.9% pressure rate against Hurts as well. JR checking in. If Vikes O-line's out, it's going to get ugly. D-line going to feast. But the Patriots O-line was out, everyone, and the Eagles D-line did not feast. You got to remember that. I agree, and normally it would make sense. Hopefully, Sean Desai recognizes this and attacks. Christian Darrisaw out. He's a top young left tackle in this league. You got to attack the edge with Hassan Reddick and whoever else. Nolan Smith, attack.
Absolutely.
Our next key to the game is 3rd down conversion, which I think was huge last week for the Eagles. It was actually absolutely terrible. The Eagles, 62% of the Eagles' drives last week ended on a 3 and out. They converted on 30.77%, so 4 for 13. And to put that in perspective, that 30.77%, last year, the Eagles were 47.58% on 3rd down. That's almost a 18% drop off. You have to convert 3rd downs. And going over to the Vikings, they were 55% of the Vikings drives were 3 and out. Their conversion rate was 42.86%, a little bit up from what they were last year, but certainly better than what the Eagles were. Dives, 3rd downs?
It's a great one. For me, it comes to getting those manageable 3rd downs, 3rd down, 3rd and 5s, 3rd and 4s, 3rd and 3s. That's where the Eagles were so elite last year. So elite. I saw way too many, abandoning the run on 1st downs. I saw way too many 2nd and 10s in week 1. I want to see the Eagles commit to the run tonight to set up the pass. And that's a really good one because the Eagles were so good. Like get to those 3rd and 2s and, let's see, the Jalen Hurts sneaks and things like that. We saw none of that in week 1.
You got to put yourself in manageable 3rd down possessions, to your point right there, to succeed. Huge, huge, huge point there. Next key is the tight ends. We didn't use our tight end last week. Part of it was Brian Johnson's fault, but part of it was Jalen Hurts' fault. Goddard was open a couple times there in the middle of the field. One of them was for a touchdown. And then let's remember last year, I said it earlier in the show, the Eagles did not face TJ Hawkinson, this Vikings team last year. He was traded later on in the season. And last week, the Eagles struggled against the tight end. So using and stopping the tight end is going to be huge this week.
Yeah, that's a good one. You look at Dallas Goedert, ran a route on 95% of dropbacks in week one. That was the highest rate among all tight ends in week one. The dude had what, one target? That's inexcusable. And the fact that, I mean, you saw the game. Jalen Hurts missed him at least a couple times for huge yardage, for huge gains. I expect Dallas Goedert to be targeted quick and early. I look for the Eagles to get him some targets early on.
Agreed. Bet that prop bet. If you're a gambler, go bet that prop bet now. He's definitely getting involved early and often. And our final key, it's Jalen Hurts himself. We saw, and I hate to say it, 2021 Jalen Hurts last week. We did not see 2022. And if you look at his throw chart, all his throws were on the outside, nothing in the middle, was not reading the field well, was locked in on receivers. We saw 2021 Jalen Hurts last week, which we cannot see. I don't expect it to continue, but he's a key, and we can't have that from Hurts going forward.
Yeah, man, he's got to, it's like I said, he's got to rise to the occasion. This guy's an MVP candidate. He's got to be better. Jalen Hurts, I thought, was getting out of the pocket way too early. And like the rest of the offense, and the play calling didn't help it, but they were out of sync all week one long. And like I said, I want to see the Eagles kind of jump out the gate early. I want to see the offensive line bully the Vikings defensive line. I want to see, AJ Brown down the sideline. I want to see all that stuff we heard about throughout camp and preseason, not during the games, but during, the scrimmages and things like that, where those two were lights out. We didn't see it at all week one. I want to see this electric offense, back in 2023.
Hopefully they can unleash that offense again. But I got a guy for you. If you have any issues with workers' compensation, motor vehicle accident, personal injury law, or criminal law, I got David R. Cherry, Esquire. Call him now, 610-565-0300, or go to www.cherryinjurylaw.com, the Cherry Firm PC. Go give him a call today. He's the man. He'll help you out in any situation. David R. Cherry Law. Now let's get to our players of the game and predictions. We'll start with player of the game. I have a feeling I know what yours is, Dodge, but go ahead. Who is the player of the game this week?
I'm going to go A.J. Brown. I think this screams a huge A.J. Brown game. The Vikings blitzed 41% of the time against the Bucs in week one, which is way up from their 18.9% blitz rate in 2022, which was the 9th lowest rate in the NFL in last season. A.J. Brown, when the Eagles were blitzed, got 32.3% of the targets when the Eagles were blitzed last season. That's the seventh highest rate among all wide receivers. I expect the Vikings to look at the tape from week one. They saw that, they could get pressure. The Patriots could get pressure on Hurts and kind of get that offense out of sync. I expect the Vikings to attack Jalen Hurts, and that will lead to A.J. Brown getting a significant amount of targets. Give me A.J. Brown.
Good one. I didn't think you were going there. I'm going to go with the guy that I mentioned earlier. My player of the game is going to be Jalen Carter. I'm expecting Jerome Brown-esque stuff from him, and I don't think Kirk Cousins is going to be able to get the ball out fast enough like Mac Jones did. I just don't think they're going to prep the same way. I just don't think it will be the same. Last week, he had 6 pressures, 1 sack. You could tell just the way he took the offensive line out. And I think Jordan Davis and Milton Williams, who had a great week last week, he was hidden through all that Jalen Carter talk. Those two, plus the injury to Darisaw off the edge, they're not going to be able to just stack the middle. I expect multiple sacks from Jalen Carter tonight and a turnover probably caused, which will give him the player of the game.
Wasn't Jalen Carter great, man? That was a lot of fun to watch. Did you see the next gen stat that Jalen Carter had the second quickest get off pass rush time in the entire NFL last week? Do you know who number one was? It was Josh Sweat. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I did see that. You're right. I saw that tweet. And the only reason I remember is because the Josh Sweat part was like, oh my gosh, there was another Eagle and Josh Sweat at that. So, yeah, that's a great stat to pull out. Josh Sweat, yeah, he was pretty fast last week as well. Player of the game, Hurts, fourth quarter runs, take the lead or ice the game.
I like it.
It very may well come down to that, Quentin. Robert Cards checking in. Is Sydney playing tonight? Also, I believe so. I don't see any injury designation for Sydney. He should play tonight, especially with Reed Blankenship out. I can't see why he won't at least get a couple cracks in there. Let's get to everything up.
Prediction.
I'm just making sure I got all the ads in. One more ad I forgot, and that is Dolan's Bar in Ridley Park. Go if you're in Delco right now, walk down to Dolan's Bar. Go watch the game. Great wings, great food. Sellers Ave right there in Ridley Park. And if you're not in the area, go check them out some other time. Thank you, Dolan's Bar, Ridley Park, Pennsylvania, right there down in Delco. We also have an amazing Edge of Philly sports lineup with a ton of shows. You can see stuff Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sundays. There's always something popping off here on Edge of Philly Sports. And now the time has come, the big time, prediction time. The Eagles, 7.5-point favorites. The line has fell down to 6 in some spots. Dives, I don't know. Do you want to go first or second here? Your call.
I'll go first, man.
All right, go ahead.
All right. Eagles win in a nail-biter tonight. This is going to be a high-scoring game. I've got the Eagles winning 32-30. Like Quentin said, this will go down to the fourth quarter. It's not going to be all gravy. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be turnovers on both sides of the teams, on both sides. And I think I like your prediction with Jalen Carter. I think he could be the key that forces an Aaron Kirk Cousins pass late in the game. Again, A.J. Brown will be a guy that gets a ton of targets downfield. And Dallas Goedert is a really good choice too. That Nick Sirianni saw that they can't go into or go through week 2 with another performance like that. Dallas Goedert's too good. He's too dominant in that middle area of the football field. So for me, Eagles win 32-30. It's going to be a long night.
Oh, that's going to be high scoring and fun to watch. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please put your comments in with the scores now. We'll put them up. Hit that subscribe, like, share it out. Next shift coming in, 28 Eagles, 17 Vikings. Imoni Bentley coming in 57-10. Wow, that would be a game.
I'll go back. I can go to bed early.
might go to bed early and catch the fourth game. That might be. And then Robert Cards coming in here, 34-17. Thank you for all your predictions. Now we get to my prediction. And I picked the Eagles to lose last week, and they very well should have. They're lucky they got out of there with the win. I hate that they didn't play any in the preseason, and the injuries are a huge concern for me tonight. I just don't see Reed Blankenship and Bradbury out. It's just a problem. Gainwell, like we said, that could be a blessing with the depth we have at running back. Josh Jobe making his first start against Jordan Addison. Who knows? They'll move Justin Jefferson all over the field.
They will.
Who's going to guard the slot with TJ Hawkinson? Is it Avonte Maddox? Who are they going to bring up? Our linebackers are a mess. Unfortunately, off the 4 game, I'm going to have to pick the Minnesota Vikings to win this game tonight.
Man.
I think it's more slop, but I think it's going to be a 23. Now, what did I say earlier? 27-22 Vikings.
Man, you first 2 weeks you picked against the Eagles?
Well, I've always had them going 1-1. And I said, I don't, because with the 4 game turnaround, I'm like, if they get out of there with a win, I don't think they'll beat and vice versa. And then
Right.
after the way they played, actually the first quarter when we're up 14-0 or whatever it was, I'm like, oh wow, I'm totally wrong. This team's awesome again. But then like they started to come back to life. So I think we're gonna have like a 3-3 early on year, but then we'll just take off at the end. So I'm not saying they're gonna stink. I still think we're going to the Super Bowl, all that. I just think we got some stuff to get through here in the beginning. So
You heard it.
Eagles losing.
You heard it here first. Freddie hates the Eagles. That's
I hate the Eagles. Yeah, my kids go EAGLES before ABCDEE. I don't even know the alphabet. I said EE. I skipped F. Anyhow, Dives, anything you want to plug before we go?
I'll be doing halftime live with my man Shane. As soon as the second quarter ends, we'll be going live, talking reaction, top takeaways, all that. Grading Jalen Hurts. So fun. That's like the most fun 5 to 10 minute show of the year. It's like a race against the clock before the third quarter starts. I will not be doing post game. We have other guys that'll be doing it, but again, when the clock hits 0, there will be a post game show. So lots of fun tonight.
Yep. So tune in at halftime. Check out Dives and Shane. And then here we go. Birds Breakdown post-game live. We'll have a ton of coverage there as well. You can find me at Freddie Burns _ for Chris Dives. I'm Freddie Burns. Go Birds.